We keep talking about how exciting this offseason is going to be for the Carolina Hurricanes. Everybody thinks it's going to be really exciting for the Carolina Hurricanes. This might be the portion of the offseason, I'm just going to say this so we get ahead of it, and I've been trying not to do this, where national media members are just going to loosely connect the Canes to every high-profile player that might be on the move, and they'll do that for like 3 weeks. So then whoever they end up getting with, they'll be able to say, I mentioned this in my article back on June 5th. I did connect so-and-so with the Carolina Hurricanes. I did connect Sam Bennett. I did connect, name whoever it is. But when a national media conglomerate like The Athletic, New York Times, The Athletic, puts out an article, the entire article is ranking the entire league, the entire NHL, in most likely to land Mitch Marner, who is one of, if not the crown jewel of the free agency class. And they put every team on the list, and the first one you read is the Carolina Hurricanes. You scroll, because, I'm so used to scrolling like power rankings for like the Carolina Panthers, where it's just like, you got to go all the way down to the bottom, and then you start looking. No, you don't even get a you just scroll a little bit, and there's the Carolina Hurricanes. That means something. They had 4 teams in the most likely fits tier. Carolina, the LA Kings, the newly named Utah Mammoth, and Vegas. I am excited by this. I think Mitch Marner would be a really fun player to root for. I think he's very skilled. I think he is talented, and I think he's been productive. Okay? If you want your big scorer, which we've talked about being in need, to be a free agency acquisition, Mitch Marner is the option, right? We've talked about trade options, which will be more varied, obviously, but Mitch Marner, in a lot of ways, would be the option in free agency, the position A, whatever you want to call it. But in their description, in the Athletics description for why Carolina is one of the most likely fits, they bring up my biggest fear. So it starts with the obvious. Okay, I'm going to break this down, this little blurb that they give us in a paragraph. No contending team will have a bigger need for a star offensive player and as much cap space as the Hurricanes, who figure to be aggressive this July 1st, given another disappointing exit. That makes sense, right? Team needs player wants money, team has money to spend, bada boom, bada bang, there you go. Here's where my biggest fear is. Marner turned down a trade to Carolina near the March 7th deadline, but with a no-movement clause and the fact he's about to become a father, that made a lot of he was about to become a father, that made a lot of sense on the personal side. That situation hasn't dampened the Hurricanes' interest. But will Marner be interested if they are the highest bidder in free agency? And end of paragraph. You better make sure he wants to be a Carolina Hurricane if you give him the kind of money that it will require to make him a Carolina Hurricane. You better make sure there's a pretty good chance he wants to be a Carolina Hurricane before you spend too much time and effort and energy and attention on trying to make him a Carolina Hurricane. That much is obvious. Learn from the Mikko situation. Make sure, because like the part of it where he actually might be a reason why that you could use this in your sales pitch, your free agency pitch. He became a father, first-time father for the first time, right around the exact same time Sebastian Aho did. Okay? So if you remember when he was, they were finishing series early to give Aho the time, you know how it is. Like within a day or two or a couple days of each other, they both had their first kid. So if Mitch Marner at the trade deadline really was like, no, I'm turning down trade opportunities even to places I like because I don't want to be moving, I don't want to be away from my family with a baby on the way, that's fine. He better make that real obvious real quick once free agency opens up. His agent better be wink, wink, nod, nodding now, like that had nothing to do with you guys. He had family stuff. Because if you spend time and effort on trying to get Mitch Marner, and because of that, you miss out on some other opportunity when it was never really an option with Mitch Marner. That's how you end up. There's only, one or two proper ways through this offseason that end up with a Stanley Cup winning roster. You don't want to miss that exit, mix that off-ramp because you're too busy being distracted by a guy who's not really an option, who doesn't want to be there, and you learned even if you get somebody in your jersey, if they don't want to be there, it won't work out. No matter how friendly they are with, they could be best childhood friends with your best player, and it still won't work out if they don't want to be here. Eric Tulsky, the GM, was on our network not long ago, and he was asked, what is the process for determining fit in the locker room, how they go about it? This is what Eric Tulsky had to say.
Yeah, so a lot of that comes down to contacts. We're talking to players who have played for us, who know the players because they played with them before. We're talking to coaches who have coached the player before or who are friends with people who have coached the player before. We're talking to, scouts who may have worked with the person when they were with their junior team. Anyone who knows the player, we're trying to talk to them and get their sense of what the player is like, not as a player, but as a person. And then we're working with our scouts and coaches to evaluate what they're like as a player. And we want to make sure both of those things fit.
Let's turn my microphone on before I start talking. Have to. I'm speaking with terrible grammar today. They have to double and triple check on the personal side. The hockey side I actually like. There's this tool, and this is where I as analytics as I get, because I don't know how to create algorithms. Pro Hockey Reference, which is a site that is Pro Hockey Reference, Pro Football Reference, Pro Basketball. They're great for just stats and numbers. They have something called a similarity score, where they look at the production of players throughout a certain point in their career and just tell you like who's had a similar level of production, right? Goals for, goals expected, whatever. I don't know how they create it, but it's just to say like this is a player in your tier. Do you know who is Mitch Marner's best match? Career for career? Sebastian Aho. I thought it was hilarious. I was like, oh, look at this. Look at this. And they give you like a top, I don't know, it's like 8 or 9 guys, or 10 maybe, probably 10 if I'm being honest. Guess who were both top 7 matches for Mitch Marner through this point in their career, whatever it is, 8 and 9 years, however long he's been in the league? Jake Gensel and Mikko Rantanen. So he is squarely in the production category, and that's overall. It's not like just goal scoring. Obviously they're different players. You can play different styles. It's like impact, how much impact they've had on their team positively and negatively over this point in their careers on a year-to-year basis. And so right there, it's saying this is in the range of player that the Canes are interested in acquiring because they've done it twice in the last 2 years. There's a lot that I like. And he does bring some to special teams, and I know he hasn't been the playoff performer, but I do tend to believe that situation impacts your playoff performing. A lot of that goes with coaching and leadership and culture, and part of me as a former athlete just wants to say everybody's the guy that didn't win the big one until they win the big one. I mean, history is littered with clutch performers that through 8 years, 9 years in their career were seen as chokers and couldn't win.
We talked about that, especially kind of relevant to our discussion about coaches being fired yesterday, where it's hard to break through. Like teams can go 6, 7, 8 years with the pieces there, but to get over that hump is hard. And it's not just for coaches. I mean, it's the same for the players. The same applies. Only one team wins every year, and other than that, it's an absolute grind to try to break through.
Here is my hockey worry for Mitch Marner. In addition to the postseason stuff, but you'd have to evaluate, and it goes back to what Dan Morgan, the GM of the Panthers, said on their Panthers blueprint, which is if you're going to miss on a guy, it's usually because you don't know the guy well enough. Like if he's ready for the lights, if he has that it factor, you're going to have to shake his hand, look him in the eye, and figure that out for yourself as an evaluator. I think Rod would be really good at deciding if somebody has that in their core or not. But the other funny thing is this: Gensel, Rantanen, and Marner. What would they all have in common coming to the Carolina Hurricanes? they played a pretty big star of a center, right? You're looking at Sidney Crosby, you're looking at McKinnon, you're looking at Matthews. Those guys have a certain when you're leaving that type of player, it's like I need the production to come with. Like it can't, let me put it this way. Mikko was accused of being a McKinnon merchant, right? You don't, and I don't even want to say it would be like an Austin Matthews merchant or anything, but Toronto gets up and down, right? Toronto plays a different style, and you want to make sure his production continues even in Carolina at least the same level. You might need a little bit more, right? You might need a few more goals, but you could argue him being the centerpiece of an attack, meaning the main shooter, could help with that. But now that just about everybody is pointing Carolina and Mitch Marner towards at least a higher percentage than most other teams, I think you need to explore the things you like and the things you don't like about that potential marriage. Right? Are the things that you are worried about deal breakers, or are they things you can get used to, or are they things he can fix? I need to know, I need him. The courtship has to be reciprocal, right? I want to know he wants to be a Carolina Hurricane, and if he doesn't, that's fine. We can go find somebody else. We'll go talk to trades. We'll spend our free agency money elsewhere. But if he wants to be a Carolina Hurricane, then my next step down is let's make sure that goal production is transferable from the situation you're in to the situation we want to put you in.
Right. Can I say something that might be a little unpopular?
I encourage it.
I don't know if they should go after Mitch Marner.
I think price matters.
Price does matter. So why I say that is twofold. One, Tulski is not going to hamstring the cap situation. Now, granted, there's a lot of cap space and there's a lot of flexibility, but you have to look into the future too, and there's going to be RFAs that need extensions in a year. There's going to be other people that come on the market in the future that you might want to acquire, and you want to keep that space open. There's that. But two is just, I kind of see is just another pass-first player on a team where we need someone to shoot the puck. And we were talking about this yesterday. Yep. If we can find that guy who is kind of the black hole who's going to instantly have that green light, that's really what you want. And, looking at Mitch Marner, I see 2 30-goal seasons, and one of those was on the number at 30 goals, and then 13 career goals in the playoffs in 70 games.
And we did talk about this yesterday, in that he really doesn't have what I think, and actually this past season on a per game basis was his worst scoring season in a while. If you want to solve it in free agency, there isn't one. Right? Which is why yesterday my pipe dream is Jason Robertson.
Right.
And I'm even falling more in love with that because there's more reasons that I've learned about pick ownership and contingencies on future picks that Dallas really needs their picks back that they gave to the Canes in the Mikko Rantanen deal. Jason Robertson is still my ideal, but if you don't want to use those resources on that role, I don't know if there's that black hole scorer that can just be a merchant off of Aho and Jarvis setting them up. I don't know if that exists in free agency. I think Marner might be the best option.
Right. And don't get me wrong, he is an incredibly talented player and would definitely add something, but for a team where there was so much said about, especially early in the conference final series, they need to shoot more, and when that's supposed to be their identity, and then come playoff time, they need to stick to that. They need to have guys who are willing to put that puck on net and willing to just
Part of me also
let it rip.
Part of me also, and this will be my last point, and this is, I can bring analytics in and I can say, he's a 1.26 point per game player, and even in the postseason this year, he was a point per game. Part of me does think, just from attitude and how he carries himself, I think he might want to score more than he does, and that's I'm trying to think of the best example of this. It's I don't know, Brett Favre backing up in Atlanta, and you're just that guy wants to be a gunslinger, and if he ever gets a shot, I don't know. And not that dramatic. That's just a super obvious example from history. I think Mitch might be more of a scorer than he's been, but again, he'd have to convince me of that. They're for Marner and the Canes to work out, if I'm the Canes, for every time, every point I make for you to join us, you need to make a point about why we should want you. And then we should all talk about how cheap it's going to be and how you're going to give us just a steal of a deal.
Right. And we're saying so much about free agency, and I know everyone wants to get all in and load up for next year and go in the playoffs. And obviously, I like to add and make the team better too. But if you look ahead a little bit at the 2026 free agency class, I mean there are a lot of very interesting players. Now, I don't know how many of them are going to get there. I don't know how many are going to be extended ahead of time, but there are names like Kirill Kaprizov and Jason Robertson is an RFA, obviously someone we might be targeting. Kyle Connor's a free agent in 2026. That's a guy who is not afraid to shoot the puck.
If they do reach free agency.
Exactly. But then you have to, obviously you're not banking on these guys necessarily being there, but at the same time, just the current contracts that are expiring in 26, there's also a pretty hefty goalie market as well in 2026.
Which is, I think, why Freddie is on a one-year deal.